Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are wading into some waters that are, well, they're pretty difficult to navigate.
That's a good way to put it.
We aren't just looking at an artist or a philosopher. We're looking at a living, breathing code.
That is the perfect way to frame it. I mean, if you just casually scroll past the work of Carnage, right, you might think you're looking at a hip-hop mixtape or maybe
a diary entry or something.
Exactly, a disjointed diary entry, or maybe a lecture on, I don't know, ancient Egyptian mysticism. But the deeper you go, you realize it's all of those things kind of stacked on top of each other.
And that stacking is what makes it so dense. I spent the weekend with this material, transcripts of videos like 101all, beg ing, let us be, and I honestly felt like I needed a translator half the time.
Right.
But the fascinating thing is, Carnage Wright gives us a roadmap. He calls his entire body of work not content or albums, but a sovereign syllabus.
Which is such a heavy term if you really stop to think about it. A syllabus implies that, you're here to learn something, that there's a path.
A structured path from ignorance to understanding.
Yeah, and sovereign implies the goal of this education isn't a degree. It's freedom. It's self-rule. It suggests that the curriculum we've all been given by society is missing the most important lesson, which is how to own yourself.
So what's our mission today? Because we've got everything here, from childhood trauma to commercial law to geology. How do we synthesize this for you without getting lost?
Well, our goal is to decode the worldview of Carnage Wright. We're going to trace the arc of his syllabus. It starts with what he calls the glitch, his experience with neurodivergence, and the failure of the education system.
Okay.
Then we move into the treatment, which is not medication, it's ancient Hermetic philosophy. And finally, we look at the rebellion, his legal and spiritual battle against what he calls the legal fiction of modern life.
So it's a journey from being a broken cog in the machine to becoming the architect of your own reality. Let's start at the beginning, the classroom.
Right, this is the foundation. In the source material, specifically 1nOnly, Carnage talks a lot about his childhood diagnosis of ADHD, but, and this is so crucial, he just refuses to accept the premise of the diagnosis. He doesn't see it as a deficit.
He explicitly rejects the word disorder. He reframes it as divergent cognition.
Exactly. And he uses this really striking geometric analogy to explain it. He describes the school system, the curriculum, the tests, the desks and rows as a two-dimensional world.
A flat page.
A flat page. It operates on length and width. Sit still, look forward, repeat back.
And he describes his own mind as a tetrahedron. Now, I had to look this up to visualize it perfectly, but that's a pyramid with a triangular base, right?
That's it. For anyone not brushing up on their geometry, a tetrahedron is a three-dimensional shape. It has volume, it has depth. So Carnage argues that the cosmos saw a mind built with three-dimensional geometry that simply refused to flatten itself onto a 2D piece of paper.
That is such a powerful visual. It suggests the friction he felt wasn't a malfunction, it was a dimension error. The room wasn't built for the object.
He literally says, heaven saw a mind too big for the room. It just changes the whole narrative from I can't focus to I am processing depth where you only see surface.
Right.
But in a rigid system, that depth looks like disruptions. It's like if you put a 3D object on a flat scanner, the lid won't close. The machine thinks the object's broken, but the object is just, it's too much reality for the machine to handle.
So naturally, he got in trouble. He talks about being the class clown, getting sent to the hallway, the separate classrooms with the IEP.
The individual education plan.
Yeah.
Which he notes the irony of. He was labeled an individual with a plan only because he wouldn't conform to the collective. But this is where he introduces one of his most fascinating archetypes. The sacred clown.
The jester.
Yes. He reframes his acting out as an energetic necessity. Think about a classroom where everyone is bored or anxious or suppressed. That creates this kind of emotional static. It builds up like electricity. Carnage argues that the sacred clown acts as a lightning rod.
So by making a joke or causing a scene, he's actually grounding that energy. He's taking the hit for the room.
Precisely. He says he was grounding the static of the room into laughter. To the teacher, it's a disruption, but to the energy of the room, it's a release valve. He writes, the laughter I provided was negative only to the ones who feared the truth in a joke.
It's a mechanism for transmuting tension into joy.
That's it. It's such a sophisticated way to look at behavioral issues. It turns the bad kid into a necessary social function. But the system didn't see it that way. He talks about being medicated, about the chemical leash.
Feeling high bandwidth in a low bandwidth world.
Yes. The medication was the system's way of throttling his connection speed, so to speak, to match the slow pace of the classroom. It was an attempt to flatten the tetrahedron so the lid would close.
Which leads us to the second phase of his syllabus. He doesn't just stay in that victim mindset of, school failed me. He realizes that if the school syllabus is broken, he needs a new one.
He needs a new operating system.
And he goes searching for it and finds it in something ancient.
He finds Hermeticism.
I have to admit, seeing the 7 Hermetic principles referenced in what looks like a hip-hop transcript, it just stopped me in my tracks. Can we unpack this? Because he's not just quoting them to sound smart. He's using them like tools to fix his life.
It's the backbone of his recovery. Hermeticism is this philosophical tradition based on writings attributed to Hermes Trismegistus. It's all about the underlying laws of the universe. Carnage lists these principles and applies them directly to his trauma.
Let's look at the first one he mentions, the principle of mentalism. All is mind.
This is the big one. It states that the universe is mental, that reality is a projection of consciousness. For Carnage, this was the key to escaping the victim narrative. If all is mind, then the world around him.
The labels, the failures, the pain.
All of it was essentially a mirror reflecting his own internal state.
He says, I recognize the world as a mirror. That's a scary thought, though. If the world is a mirror and your world is chaotic, that means the chaos is inside you.
It's terrifying, but it's also empowering. Because if the chaos is inside you, you can change it. You don't have to change the school system. You have to change the mind that's projecting it.
It shifts the control from external to internal.
Exactly.
Then he moves to the principle of polarity. Everything is dual, everything has poles. This one seems so central to his art.
Oh, this is where the alchemy comes in. Polarity teaches that opposites are really the same thing, just at different degrees. Hot and cold are just degrees of temperature. Sorrow and joy are just degrees of emotion.
So his lead, his trauma, his addiction, his failures is the same substance as his gold.
Exactly. His wisdom, his art, his sovereignty, it's the same stuff. He calls the lead prima materia, the raw material.
The lead is the prima materia.
Right. You don't hide the pain. You don't try to delete the bad memories. You use them. He talks about turning pain to illumination and trauma to blueprints. His struggle isn't a stain on his record. It's the fuel for his engine.
Yeah.
Without the lead, he can't make the gold.
It's a radical acceptance. He also mentions the principle of rhythm. Everything flows out and in.
That principle saved him from shame. See, when you're an addict, or when you're struggling with mental health, a relapse can feel like the end of the world, a permanent failure. But the principle of rhythm says, the pendulum swing manifests in everything.
So the downswing isn't a failure, it's just physics.
It's just physics. If you swing back, you have to swing forward. He contextualizes his collapses as part of the natural rhythm of his life, which allows him to stop hating himself for them and just wait for the upswing. It turns a crisis into a cycle, much easier to manage.
Okay, so amidst all this philosophy, there is this recurring, very visual concept he calls the blue mirror. This felt like the most esoteric part of the tapes. It's not the mirror in the bathroom. What is he looking at here?
The blue mirror is his term for the high self, the soul. He contrasts it with the regular mirror, which shows you the mask, your face, your aging skin, the stress in your eyes.
The person the world sees.
The person the world sees. The blue mirror reflects the Krishna Christ frequency.
Whoa, okay. Krishna Christ frequency. That sounds like a heavy religious syncretism.
It is, but for him, it's more about resonance than dogma. He sees figures like Krishna and Christ not as competing deities, but as avatars of the same blue being, a state of perfect oneness with the divine. He calls it the high bandwidth resonance.
So when he looks in the blue mirror, he's trying to see the part of himself that is infinite, the part that wasn't diagnosed with ADHD, the part that isn't in debt.
Correct. He's trying to connect with his avatar, the version of himself that exists outside the simulation of daily life. And oddly enough, he grounds this really cosmic idea in a very specific physical location.
Yes, Missouri. Of all places. He talks about standing on a Missouri river bluff.
This is where the sovereign syllabus gets geological. Carnage believes that the specific geography of those bluffs, the Precambrian limestone, acts as a massive energy storage device.
He mentions Tesla energy.
He does. He sees the Earth's crust there as a crystalline structure, a battery. So when he stands on that bluff, looking at the river, he believes he's physically plugging into a power source.
Oh, wow.
He's grounding that blue being energy into the physical Earth.
It really illustrates that Hermetic principle as above, so below. He's connecting the cosmic above with the geological below. It's surprisingly tactical for something so spiritual.
And that tactical connection gives him the strength to face the real enemy. Because up until now, we've talked about his internal struggle, his mind, his soul. But the sovereign syllabus also declares war on an external system.
And this brings us to segment 3, the system versus the sovereign soul. This is where the language really shifts from philosophical to legalistic.
It gets very sharp here. Carnage draws a hard line between what he calls the living man and the legal fiction.
He's talking about name in all caps, right? Like on a driver's license or a bank statement.
Yes. This draws on theories you often find in sovereign citizen movements, though Carnage applies them more metaphorically, more spiritually in these texts. The idea is that when you're born, the state creates a corporate entity, a straw man, represented by your name in all capital letters.
He calls it a managerial carcass. That is such a visceral image. It sounds like roadkill in a suit.
It creates a stark separation. He argues that the government, the banks, the courts, the administrative franchise, as he calls it, only has jurisdiction over that carcass. They can tax it, they can arrest it, but they have no jurisdiction over the blue dream, the living soul.
This leads to his critique of banking, which he calls the Great Swap.
This is a crucial economic insight in his syllabus. He believes that the banking system is basically a magic trick. He says the system does not inject real value, it converts your inherent worth into a commercial liability.
Can we break that down? What does he mean by inherent worth?
He means your life force, your labor, your creativity, your time. That is the only real value in the economy. Money is just paper representing that. But the system tricks you into thinking they have the value, the money, and you need to borrow it. He argues we are the creditors because we provide the energy and the banks are the debtors. But the Great Swap reverses those roles, turning free humans into eternal debtors.
It's a system designed to harvest energy.
That's his exact view, an energy harvest. And he realizes he's been participating in it voluntarily. This realization hits him hard, especially in his personal life. He uses a metaphor that I think anyone can relate to, even if you don't buy the legal theory. He talks about the burning house.
That part was heavy. He says, I stayed in the burning house because it was the only place I ever felt alive.
It's just a profound statement on toxicity, whether it's a bad relationship, an addiction, or just participating in a corrupt society. The fire is destroying you, but the fire also provides warmth. He talks about the warmth in the fire that kills you.
It speaks to why it's so hard to wake up or leave these systems. The known pain is warmer than the unknown cold of freedom.
Exactly. Leaving the burning house means walking out into the dark. It's lonely, but in that darkness, he finds a lineage to hold on to. He talks about Grandpa Ernie and the Smith name.
The Smith legacy. He plays on the word Smith, right?
He does. A blacksmith forges metal. A silversmith works silver. Carnage calls himself a wordsmith. He sees his grandfather not just as a relative, but as an archetype of integrity, someone who forged truth like metal.
In a world of legal fictions and paper lies, the Smith represents something solid, tangible.
Real value, not the fake value of the banking system. So, okay, we have the diagnosis, the glitch, the cure hermeticism, and the enemy, the legal fiction. Now, we need the weapon. How does he actually fight back?
This brings us to the climax of the syllabus, the 10th power and the return of the jester.
The 10th power is a term Carnage uses to describe the ultimate state of integration. To understand it, you have to look at the numbers. The number 1 is the individual, the ego, the one and only, the sharp sword, the masculine principle. The number 0 represents the all, the infinite, the womb, the one and all, the feminine receptive principle.
So the 10th power is the 1 and the 0 together.
Precisely. It's the ability to be both, to be the sharp, sovereign individual who can file a motion in court or stand his ground, and be the connected spiritual being who knows he is one with the universe. It's the integration of the warrior and the monk.
And the avatar for this power is the jester again.
We circle right back to the start. But now, the sacred clown isn't just a kid acting out in class. The jester is a weapon of mass deconstruction.
He has that incredible line about the red nose.
The red nose turning into Rudolph and the crown. It's brilliant imagery. Rudolph was the outcast, the glitch, the one who didn't fit. But his difference became the light that led the way through the fog.
So the jester is the one who can laugh at the system?
And that makes him the only one who can lead us out of it. He says the jester is the judge.
Because the jester exposes the absurdity.
Exactly. If you argue with a judge, you validate his authority. You play his game. If you laugh at the court, if you show that the legal fiction is just a game of dress-up, you strip it of its power. He calls this auditing the system.
Auditing is usually such a boring word. It brings to mind tax season. But here it sounds Aggressive.
He uses it like a spiritual sword. To audit means to examine the accounts and find the discrepancies. He is auditing the great swap. He's exposing the lie that we are debtors. He says he is here to decommission its control.
And he does this through resonance.
Resonance is the earthquake. This goes back to physics. You don't destroy a bridge by hitting it with a hammer. You destroy it by matching its resonant frequency until it shakes itself apart.
Wow.
Carnage believes that by vibrating at his 10th power, by speaking his truth without fear, he creates a resonance that the legal fiction just cannot handle. The system is rigid, the soul is fluid, and the fluid eventually shatters the rigid.
It's a complete journey. He starts as a glitch, a mistake in the code. He ends as the virus that rewrites the program.
Or perhaps he realizes the program was never real to begin with. He just steps out of the winning house and realizes he can build his own shelter.
So, stripping away all the dense language, what is the core takeaway for you today? Why does Carnic Wright's sovereign syllabus matter to someone who isn't a hip-hop artist or a Hermetic scholar?
It matters because we all have a legal fiction. We all have a version of ourselves that is flattened, commodified, and expected to conform to a 2D world. We all have a burning house that we're afraid to leave.
It's about the movement from lead to gold.
Yes. The lead is your trauma, your debt, your feeling of unworthiness. The gold isn't money. It's sovereignty. It's the realization that you define your value, not the bank, not the boss, not the diagnosis.
Demands a huge shift in perspective, from the one and only, that isolation, to the one and all connection.
And it leaves us with a challenge, a homework assignment from the syllabus, if you will.
Which brings us back to the blue mirror.
The challenge is this. Next time you look in the mirror, really look. Who is looking back? Do you see the managerial carcass? The citizen, the employee, the taxpayer, the aging face? Or can you see the blue being? Can you see the observer behind the eyes?
The one that was there before the name and will be there after the name is gone.
That is the only part of you that is truly sovereign. And finding that frequency, that's the work.
It's a question that demands you step out of the flat page and inhabit your own geometry. Thank you for stepping into the circuit with us today.
Stay sovereign.
And keep diving deep.